All right, 6 House Democrats just gave Donald Trump one of the most useful political victories of the summer, and the names tell you exactly why this vote matters. Henry Cuellar of Texas, Don Davis of North Carolina, Jared Golden of Maine, Adam Gray of California, Vicente Gonzalez of Texas, and Marie Gluesenkamp Perez of Washington broke with nearly their entire party and voted for a defense package carrying Trump's Save America Act. Every one of those Democrats represents a district Donald Trump carried in 2024. That is the story. This was not 6 random moderates wandering across the aisle on an ordinary Tuesday. This was a group of Democrats from the most politically dangerous territory in America, looking at voter identification, proof of citizenship, and their own re-election maps, and deciding that standing with party leadership was the greater risk. In my view, this vote exposed something Democratic leaders have been trying very hard to hide. Their members do not all fear Trump's agenda equally. The members sitting in safe blue districts fear anger from activists and primary voters. The members sitting in Trump districts fear the people who will actually decide whether they still have jobs after November. And when those two pressures collided on the House floor, 6 Democrats chose the voters back home. The final vote came on July 22nd. The House passed the fiscal year 2027 National Defense Authorization Act by 216 to 212. The official roll call shows 209 Republicans, 6 Democrats, and 1 independent voting yes, while 7 Republicans and 205 Democrats voted no. The 6 Democratic yes votes were Cuellar, Davis, Golden, Gray, Gonzalez, and Gluesenkamp Perez. The defense bill authorizes roughly $1.15 trillion, includes military pay raises, and covers everything from weapons procurement to military housing and national security policy. Republican leaders then used a procedural maneuver to send the defense bill forward together with the Save America Act, Trump's election overhaul requiring proof of citizenship for federal voter registration and photo identification for voting. So here is the important factual distinction. The 6 Democrats did not cast a clean standalone vote on a bill containing nothing but the Save America Act. They voted for a massive defense package carrying it. That distinction belongs in an honest analysis, but it does not erase the political meaning of the vote. These members knew what had been attached, knew Democratic leaders opposed it, knew Trump would claim the result, and voted yes anyway. Voters do not experience congressional procedure the way attorneys and committee staff do. They see a simple question on a campaign advertisement. When Congress voted on a package requiring proof of citizenship and voter identification, did your representative vote yes or no? 6 Democrats from Trump districts made sure their answer would be yes. The Save America Act has political force because its central message is easy to understand. Federal elections are for American citizens. Citizenship should be verified when a person registers, and voters should identify themselves when they cast a ballot. Republicans can communicate that argument in 10 seconds. Democrats have spent years answering it with explanations that require 10 minutes. The Democratic objection is that non-citizen voting is already illegal and extremely rare, while millions of eligible citizens may have difficulty producing passports, birth certificates, or documents matching their current legal names. Voting rights organizations also warn that a rapid national rollout could disrupt online and mail registration, create new problems for married women who change their surnames, place burdens on elderly voters, and expose election workers to severe penalties for paperwork mistakes. I do not think election security requires pretending that every government database is accurate or that every eligible voter keeps a passport in the kitchen drawer. But I also do not think those administrative problems justify treating citizenship verification itself as an illegitimate demand. That is where Democrats keep losing the argument. Instead of taking the popular principle and improving the mechanics, national party voices often attack the principle, question the motives of everyone supporting it, and describe identification requirements as a direct assault on democracy. That response may satisfy organizations in Washington. It sounds detached from ordinary life in the districts these 6 Democrats represent. My position is straightforward. Only citizens should vote in federal elections. Government should verify that status. Valid identification and citizenship documents should be made free and easy to obtain. Legitimate voters should receive a clear opportunity to correct errors. Military, disabled, elderly, and overseas voters should have workable procedures. and officials should be judged by whether they secure the system without blocking eligible Americans. That is the practical middle ground Democrats surrender whenever they make the entire debate about why verification cannot be done. Now look at the map, because the map explains the vote better than any press release. In the 2024 election, only 16 House districts split their presidential and congressional choices. 13 voted for Donald Trump, while electing a Democrat to Congress. These crossover Democrats are the narrow bridge holding the party within reach of a House majority, and 6 of them just voted for the package carrying Trump's election bill. That means nearly half of the Democratic members representing Trump-won districts broke with their party on this vote. 6 defections create permission. They allow the next vulnerable Democrat to say, "I am not abandoning my party. I am voting the same way other members in districts like mine already voted." That is how a crack spreads. It begins as an exception, becomes a block, and eventually changes what leadership can demand from its own caucus. Henry Cuellar and Vicente Gonzalez are the clearest examples of why the old Democratic strategy is failing. Both represent South Texas, a region National Democrats once treated as safely blue and culturally predictable. It was neither. The border is not a television abstraction there. It affects law enforcement, trade, hospitals, schools, ranches, local budgets, and the basic credibility of the federal government. South Texas voters can support legal immigration, maintain deep family ties across the border, and still believe citizenship must mean something in an American election. Cuellar has survived by building a reputation as one of the most conservative Democrats in the House on border, energy, and law enforcement questions. Gonzalez has faced the same regional shift and knows Republicans will seize any vote that makes him look aligned with the National Party's weakest position. For both men, voting yes was political armor. They can return home and say that when Trump's election proposal reached the floor inside a defense package, they did not automatically oppose it. Don Davis faces a similar calculation in eastern North Carolina. His district combines rural communities, black voters, agricultural interests, small towns, and a large military presence. He cannot represent that coalition by speaking only to the most progressive voices in the Democratic Party. A yes vote gave Davis several arguments at once. He can point to military pay and readiness. He can say he supported the annual defense bill. And when Republicans accuse Democrats of opposing citizenship verification, he can hold up the roll call and say, "Not me." That makes him a Democrat who understands the difference between a national slogan and a district survival strategy. Adam Gray may have had the easiest decision of all because his political margin is almost non-existent. Gray represents California's Central Valley, one of the places most likely to confuse people who imagine California as a single deep blue political culture. The Central Valley is agricultural, working class, heavily Latino, and intensely focused on water, prices, jobs, crime, energy, and immigration. Gray won one of the closest House contests in the country. Adam Gray voted against proof of citizenship, would be repeated in television advertisements, mailers, text messages, and Spanish-language media until Election Day. Marie Gluesenkamp Perez has built her entire political identity around this kind of separation from the National Party. She is an auto repair shop owner who talks about trades, rural economies, timber communities, right to repair policy, and the dignity of people who work with their hands. Her Washington district voted for Trump, and her brand depends on appearing practical rather than ideological. She understands something Democratic elites routinely underestimate. Many working-class voters want a representative who visibly rejects the party establishment sometimes. Independence has to be demonstrated. It cannot live only in a campaign biography. A vote like this is valuable to Gluesenkamp Perez precisely because it is public, controversial, and easy for voters to remember. Jared Golden is different because he has already announced that he will not seek re-election in 2026. Golden was not simply protecting his own next campaign. He has spent years learning which national Democratic positions alienate rural and working-class voters. He may be leaving Congress, but the lesson from his district remains. Democrats can oppose Trump personally, criticize Republican economic policy, and still recognize that blanket resistance to voter identification is a political loser. Golden's retirement also creates another problem for Democrats. His main seat becomes harder to defend without an incumbent who spent years constructing a personal identity separate from the party label. Can Democrats hold Trump territory after the individual politicians who built crossover brands are gone? They can only do it by permitting members to disagree, cross the aisle, and occasionally anger activists. The moment party leadership demands total conformity, these districts begin moving back toward their presidential vote. Republicans see this vulnerability, which is why attaching the Save America Act to the defense bill was more than a legislative tactic. It was a stress test. The National Defense Authorization Act has become law every year for more than 6 decades. Members are accustomed to supporting it because it funds military priorities, troop benefits, weapons systems, and installations affecting their states and districts. By linking Trump's election agenda to that annual bill, Speaker Mike Johnson forced Democrats to carry several politically difficult positions in one vote. A no vote could be described as opposition to the defense bill, military pay raises, and election security. A yes vote meant breaking with Democratic leadership and helping Trump claim bipartisan momentum. Republicans designed a choice in which vulnerable Democrats had no painless answer. 6 of them decided the least painful answer was yes. As a political maneuver, that was smart. As a governing method, it is much more questionable. Loading unrelated partisan demands onto a defense authorization bill can endanger the entire package, and Republicans should not pretend otherwise. The Senate does not currently have the votes to pass the Save America Act under normal rules. The chamber's Republican majority is below the 60 votes generally needed to overcome a Democratic filibuster, and some Republican senators have their own concerns about mail voting and implementation. The Senate can strip the election language, pass a different defense package, and send the House into another confrontation. So this House vote did not place the Save America Act on Trump's desk. It placed 6 Democratic names on a political document that Republicans will use through November. That may be the more immediate victory, because legislation can disappear in negotiations while roll call votes remain. Here is what I think happens next. Republican leaders will repeat this tactic wherever they can. They will attach citizenship verification or voter identification language to spending bills, government funding measures, congressional ethics legislation, and other packages Democrats feel pressure to support. Their goal will be to force every Democrat in a Trump-won or narrowly divided district to choose between the national caucus and the local electorate. Democratic leaders will publicly condemn the tactic, but privately they may begin granting vulnerable members more freedom. The 6 yes votes are evidence that discipline is already weakening. The more interesting question is whether Democrats offer their own election security alternative. They could support automatic citizenship checks using reliable federal and state records, free identification, free replacement documents, strong privacy rules, notice before removal from voter rolls, meaningful appeal periods, and penalties for intentional non-citizen registration. That approach would acknowledge the public demand for security while directly answering the burden argument. In my opinion, Democrats would be far stronger making that case than defending a system millions of voters already distrust. Saying the problem is rare does not answer the public's desire for clear rules. A democracy cannot survive indefinitely when one side believes every security measure is suppression and the other side believes every administrative error is fraud. The country needs rules that ordinary citizens can understand and both parties can defend after they lose. Trump is campaigning on trust, identity, sovereignty, and the belief that government has become unwilling to enforce obvious boundaries. Democrats are answering with statistics and process objections. Statistics matter, but politics is also about whether voters believe leaders share their basic instincts. These 6 Democrats recognize the instinct. They understood that many people in their districts hear proof of citizenship and think, of course. A successful opposition party would begin from that reaction and build safeguards around it. An unsuccessful party tells those voters that the reaction itself is dangerous. That is why the wall is cracking. Cuellar, Davis, Golden, Gray, Gonzalez, and Gluesenkamp-Perez did not suddenly become Trump loyalists. They became evidence against the claim that Democrats can oppose his election agenda with one unified national message. Their votes reflect one political conclusion. Automatic resistance is becoming too expensive. And remember the House math. Republicans currently hold 218 seats, Democrats hold 212. There is 1 independent and 4 seats are vacant. Control of the chamber can turn on a tiny number of districts. Democrats need members like these 6 to retake the majority. Republicans need to defeat them or make them vote like Republicans often enough that Democratic leadership loses control of its own agenda. Either outcome benefits Trump. It is a preview of the governing problem Democrats may face, even if they gain seats. A majority built on Trump district Democrats will not behave like a majority built entirely in safe blue territory. Those members will demand border enforcement, energy flexibility, crime legislation, military support, and room to vote for identification requirements. The caucus could become larger and less unified at the same time. For Hakeem Jeffries, that is the hidden warning inside this roll call. The path to the speakership runs through lawmakers whose political survival sometimes requires giving Donald Trump a victory. The Save America Act may still be stripped, rewritten, delayed, or reduced to narrower voter ID provisions, but the 6 votes have already done their political work. They showed Republicans exactly where to apply pressure. They showed vulnerable Democrats that crossing the aisle can be safer than following leadership. And they showed voters that the Democratic position is not as unified as party spokesmen want it to appear. 6 members stepped through the wall. 7 other Democrats still represent districts Trump carried. The next Republican vote will be designed to find out how many of them are willing to follow. I'm Monica Caldwell, and my view is that this fight will not be decided by the loudest speech in Washington. It will be decided by the quiet calculation inside each vulnerable member's office. Which vote will be harder to explain back home? On July 22nd, 6 Democrats gave us their answer. Tell me in the comments whether you see this as genuine bipartisan support for election security or simply 6 politicians protecting themselves in Trump country. And subscribe, because the next vote may show whether this was one crack in the wall or the beginning of a much larger break.